The iron taste of blood filled Kale's mouth as Alpha Dominic's fingers dug into her arm, dragging her across the cold stone floor of the council chamber. Every pack member watched in silence, their eyes reflecting firelight and judgment. "This Omega," Dominic's voice echoed off ancient walls, "will pay for her brother's treason." Kale's knees scraped against stone as he forced her down. She'd known this moment would come. 3 days ago, her brother Matthias had attempted to assassinate the Alpha. 3 days ago, her life had ended. The punishment for betrayal is death, Elder Thorne announced from his seat, his weathered face impassive. But Alpha Dominic has shown mercy. He will take this Omega as his own, binding her in servitude for eternity. Mercy. The word was poison. Kale lifted her eyes to meet Dominic's gaze. His were the color of winter storms, cold and merciless. At 28, he was the youngest Alpha their pack had seen in centuries and the cruelest. Scars marked his broad shoulders, each one a story of violence. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp angles of his face, the set of his jaw that promised suffering. "Do you accept your punishment, Omega?" Dominic asked, his voice low and dangerous. Kale said nothing. Her silence was the only rebellion left to her. His hand shot out, gripping her jaw and forcing her head back. "I asked you a question." "I accept," she whispered, because the alternative was watching her younger sister Elena suffer this fate instead. The pack seer, old Mother Iris, stepped forward with the binding ceremonial blade. Its silver surface gleamed, inscribed with runes older than memory. This was no ordinary claiming between willing mates. This was punishment, humiliation, ownership. "Your hand," Dominic commanded. Kale extended her trembling hand. The blade sliced her palm, blood welling dark and hot. Dominic cut his own hand without flinching, then pressed their wounds together. The ancient words spilled from Mother Iris's lips in the old language, words that would chain Kale's soul to this man forever. The bond should have formed gradually, a warm tether between their spirits. Instead, it struck like lightning. Kale screamed. Fire raced through her veins, not the gentle warmth of a proper mate bond, but something else entirely, something wrong and angry and ancient. She felt Dominic's presence slam into her mind, and with it came agony so profound she couldn't breathe. Dominic collapsed beside her, his massive frame hitting the stone floor. His face had gone white, tendons standing out in his neck as he gasped for air. Around them, pack members jumped to their feet in alarm. "What's happening?" someone shouted. Mother Iris staggered backward, her eyes wide with horror. The ceremonial blade clattered from her hands. "No," she breathed. "It can't be." The pain was everywhere, in Kale's bones, her blood, her very soul. Through the haze of agony, she felt Dominic's consciousness touching hers, felt a shock and rage and something else, something like fear. Their bond pulsed between them, not silver and warm as mate bonds should be, but black and thorned and writhing like a living thing. "The curse," Mother Iris whispered, falling to her knees. "The ancient curse has awakened." Elder Thorne pushed through the gathering crowd. "That's impossible. Those are just stories." "Look at them." Mother Iris's voice cracked. "A forced bond against the Omega's will, taken not in love, but in cruelty. The old laws have been broken. The punishment has begun." Kale's vision swam. Through their corrupted bond, she felt Dominic trying to sever the connection, his alpha power beating against it uselessly. But the bond only tightened, digging deeper into them both like thorns into flesh. "Separate them," Elder Thorne ordered. 2 pack members moved to pull Kale away from Dominic. The moment their hands touched her, the bond reacted. A shockwave of dark energy exploded outward, throwing the men backward against the chamber walls. Dominic managed to push himself to his hands and knees, blood dripping from his nose. "What have you done?" he snarled at Mother Iris. The old seer's eyes were filled with tears. "Not I, Alpha. This curse was placed by the first Omegas, those your ancestors enslaved and brutalized. It lies dormant until a bond is forced without consent, without love, taken only to punish and break. Now it has awakened, and it will consume you both unless. Unless what? Dominic demanded. Mother Iris met Cale's eyes across the chamber floor. Unless you learn what should have been chosen freely in the first place. The pain was fading to a dull throb, but something worse replaced it. Cale could feel Dominic in her mind now, a constant presence she couldn't escape. His anger, his pride, his iron control. And beneath it all, she felt something that terrified her more than anything else. She felt him start to weaken. The mighty alpha who had never lost a fight, who ruled with absolute power, was being drained by their bond. And as his strength flowed away, Cale felt it pooling in her own body, foreign and dangerous and growing. Dominic's eyes locked with hers, and in them she saw the moment he realized the truth. This punishment he'd meant to inflict on her was destroying him instead. Get her to my chambers, he managed to say before his strength gave out. Chain her if you must. She doesn't leave my sight. As pack members hauled Cale to her feet, she felt the bond pulse between them. It would not let them be separated. It would not let them be free. Whatever curse had awakened, it had bound them together in ways neither of them could have imagined. And as Mother Iris had said, it was only the beginning. Three days of hell had passed. Cale sat in the corner of Dominic's chambers, as far from him as the bond would allow. Any farther, and the pain started, a vicious burning that felt like her insides were being shredded. She'd tried to leave once. She'd made it to the door before collapsing, screaming as invisible hooks tore at her soul. Dominic had carried her back, his own face twisted in agony. Now he stood at the window overlooking the pack grounds, his broad shoulders tense beneath his black tunic. In just 3 days, he'd changed. The arrogant set of his jaw had softened slightly, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked tired. The great Alpha Dominic, tired. You're staring, he said without turning. You're weakening, Cale replied. His hand clenched on the window frame. Watch your tongue, Omega. Or what? You'll punish me more? She laughed bitterly. We're already cursed. He spun to face her, and for a moment she saw the predator beneath the civilized veneer. But then he swayed slightly, catching himself on the wall. His alpha strength, the supernatural power that let him dominate other wolves, was failing. And Cale was getting stronger. It had started small. The morning after the claiming, she'd bent a steel spoon without meaning to. Yesterday, she'd heard a conversation happening 3 buildings away, her Omega senses suddenly sharp as broken glass. This morning, she'd woken to find frost spreading across the floor around her, though it was summer. This isn't possible, Dominic muttered, more to himself than her. Omegas don't have power. Maybe your ancestors lied about that too. His eyes flashed dangerously. My ancestors built this pack from nothing. Your ancestors murdered mine and rewrote the history. The words came from somewhere deep, some knowledge she hadn't known she possessed. Before Dominic could respond, someone knocked. Beta Marcus entered, his weathered face grave. Alpha, the Northern Border Patrol hasn't reported in. Send another team.
I did.
They found the first patrol unconscious. No wounds, no enemies. Just collapsed. Marcus's eyes flickered to Cale. Some are saying it's the curse spreading. That's superstitious nonsense. Is it? Marcus moved closer, lowering his voice. You've missed 3 council meetings. You couldn't complete the morning run. Yesterday, Garrett challenged your decision about the grain stores, and you let him. The pack is noticing, Dominic. A muscle ticked in Dominic's jaw. Get out. Marcus hesitated, then bowed his head and left. The silence stretched between them. Through their bond, Cale felt Dominic's frustration, his fear that he'd never admit aloud, and underneath it all, a bone-deep exhaustion that seemed to grow by the hour. You need to eat, she said quietly. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 2 days. How would you know that? Because I feel everything you feel, Cale thought but didn't say. The bond worked both ways, a constant stream of sensation and emotion she couldn't shut off. She knew when he was in pain. She knew when the exhaustion became almost unbearable. She knew, much as she hated to admit it, that he wasn't sleeping because nightmares plagued him every time he closed his eyes. She rose and walked to the table where servants had left food hours ago. The movement brought her closer to Dominic, and the relief from the bond's tension was immediate. They both felt it. "Don't," he warned. "You're dying," she said bluntly. "The curse is feeding on you because you won't accept what's happening." "And what's happening, Omega? Tell me, since you seem to know everything." She met his eyes, those winter storm eyes that had terrified her just days ago. "You're being punished for forcing a bond. The curse is stripping away your power and giving it to me. It won't stop until you're nothing and I'm everything, or until." "Until what?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But Mother Iris said we need to learn something. Maybe that's where we start." Dominic laughed, a harsh sound. "Learn? From the Omega I took as punishment? That's rich." "Then die," Kale said flatly. "Die and let me go free. I'd prefer that anyway." She turned away, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist. The touch sent electricity through them both, the corrupted bond singing with dark energy. Dominic jerked his hand back as if burned. "You think I want this?" he snarled. "You think I chose to be bound to someone who hates me? You chose to take me as punishment. I chose to protect my sister." The words hung in the air. Kale stared at him, and through the bond, she felt the truth of it, the weight of it. "What?" Dominic turned away, his shoulders rigid. "Nothing. Forget it." But Kale couldn't forget. Through their bond, emotions were leaking through his carefully constructed walls. Fear for someone named Elena. A father's commanding voice. An impossible choice. "Who made you do this?" she asked softly. "No one makes me do anything. I'm the alpha." "You're lying." She could feel it through the bond, the way the words scraped against some deeper truth. His hand slammed against the wall. "You know nothing about my life, Omega. Nothing about the choices I've had to make." "Then tell me." "Why would I do that?" "Because we're bound together until one of us dies or breaks, and I'd rather not die," Kale said. "And because the curse is killing you, and maybe, just maybe, honesty is part of whatever we're supposed to learn." Dominic was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "My father, the former Alpha, he ordered me to take an Omega as punishment after your brother's betrayal. I refused. He said if I didn't, he'd give the task to my younger sister instead, and her methods would be far crueler than mine." The confession settled between them like a stone dropped in still water. "So you chose me," Kale whispered. "I chose the lesser evil. Don't mistake that for mercy." But through the bond, Kale felt the lie. He'd thought of it as mercy. He'd thought taking her himself would spare her worse. It didn't absolve him of anything, didn't erase the trauma of the forced claiming, but it complicated the narrative she'd built in her mind. "You're still a monster," she said. "I know." The admission startled her. Before either could speak again, the bond suddenly flared with white-hot agony. They both cried out, Dominic dropping to one knee as Kale clutched at her chest. Through the pain, she felt something else, a pulling sensation, like the bond was trying to drag them together. "What's happening?" she gasped. Dominic's face had gone pale. "I don't know, but it's getting worse. The farther apart we are emotionally, the more it hurts." "That's impossible. We're only a few feet apart." "Not physically," he gritted out. "Emotionally. The curse wants." He cut himself off, shaking his head. But Kale understood. The curse wanted them to connect, to understand each other, to close the distance between their hearts. And they were both fighting it with everything they had. The pain intensified. Kale felt her vision starting to blur, felt Dominic's strength failing entirely. They were both going to die if this continued. "We need Mother Iris," she managed. Dominic tried to stand, but his legs gave out. The great Alpha, reduced to crawling. Kale made her choice. She moved to him, wrapping his arm around her shoulders despite every instinct screaming at her to let him suffer. The moment they touched, the pain receded slightly. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "I hate you too." But through their bond, tangled and dark and corrupted as it was, they both felt the lie. Mother Iris arrived at dawn, her ancient face creased with worry. She found them on opposite sides of the room again, both pale and exhausted from another night of fighting the bond's pull. "You're killing yourselves," she said without preamble. "Then tell us how to break it," Dominic demanded, his voice hoarse. The old seer moved to the center of the room, her milky eyes seeing far more than they should. "I've spent 3 days in the archive chambers, reading texts not opened in centuries. What I found..." She trailed off, shaking her head. "The curse is more complex than I understood." "Speak plainly," Dominic snapped. "The forced bond didn't just awaken a curse, Alpha. It awakened her." Mother Iris pointed at Kale. Her bloodline, her heritage, everything that was suppressed and hidden. The power transferring to her isn't random. It's returning to its rightful owner. Kale's heart began to pound. "What does that mean?" "It means your family, child, was not always as you've been told. Omegas were not always the weakest. Once, long ago, they were the balance to Alpha power. Battle Omegas, they were called. Protectors, warriors, wielders of gifts that complemented Alpha's strength rather than cowering beneath it." "That's mythology," Dominic said. "Is it?" Mother Iris gestured to Kale. "Then explain her growing power. Explain why the curse chose her specifically, out of all the Omegas in this pack." Kale stood on shaking legs. "If this is true, why don't I remember? Why doesn't anyone remember?" "Because it was erased. Systematically, deliberately, over generations." Mother Iris pulled a worn leather journal from her robes. This belonged to the pack historian from 200 years ago. She wrote of the Purge, when Alpha Cassius, Dominic's great-great-grandfather, declared all Omegas with power a threat to pack stability. He hunted them down, broke their bonds, scattered their families. Those who survived were forced into subservience, their children taught that weakness was their nature. The room felt too small suddenly. Kale's mind reeled with implications. "My family, your mother was the last known Battle Omega. She hid her abilities, married a Beta, and raised you to never show strength. When she died giving birth to your brother, her secrets died with her." Mother Iris's voice softened. "But blood remembers what minds forget. The forced bond broke the suppression, and now your true nature is awakening." Dominic had gone very still. If Battle Omegas were so powerful, why did they let themselves be purged? Because they were betrayed by those they trusted most. The Alphas they'd bonded with willingly, who swore to protect them, turned on them instead. Mother Iris looked between them. "The curse is not just punishment, Alpha. It's a test. Can an Alpha and Omega forge a bond built on truth and equality, or will history repeat itself?" "This is insane," Dominic said, but his voice lacked conviction. Kale barely heard him. Her mind was racing through memories, seeing them with new eyes. Her mother's strange strength, the way she could calm any wolf with a touch. The stories she told of ancient Omega queens who ruled beside their Alphas. The lullaby about silver warriors who danced with moonlight. Not myths. History. "Where would I find more information?" Kale asked. Mother Iris smiled slightly. "The old archive beneath the pack house. 3 levels down, behind the door marked with the Omega symbol. No one's been there in decades. Most have forgotten it exists." "I'll go alone," Kale said when Dominic moved to follow. "The bond won't allow it. You're already pale from being across the room from me." He was right. The constant low-grade pain of separation had become her new normal, but if she tried to leave the building, it would become unbearable. "Fine," she said. "But you follow my lead down there." Something flickered in Dominic's eyes. Might have been respect. Agreed. They left at midday, moving through the pack house like strangers forced into proximity. Pack members stared and whispered. Kale heard fragments. "Look how weak he's become. She's done something to him. The curse is spreading." The entrance to the lower archives was hidden behind a tapestry in the old wing. Dominic pulled it aside, revealing a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. The air that wafted up smelled of dust and secrets. Kale descended first, her enhanced Omega vision cutting through the gloom. 2 levels down, then 3. The door Mother Iris had mentioned was there, carved with an Omega symbol that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. She pressed her hand to it. The door swung open. The room beyond took her breath away. Walls lined with scrolls and books, weapons mounted on racks, paintings of wolves in human and beast form fighting side by side. But what stopped her cold was the portrait hanging above a stone desk. A woman who looked exactly like Kale stared back at her, dressed in battle armor, a silver blade in her hand. Beside her stood an alpha male, his hand on her shoulder, his expression filled with pride and something more. Illyra Moonwhisper, Dominic read from the plaque beneath. Battle Omega and Alpha's Shadow. Died defending the pack from the Northern Invasion, 1823. She's my great-great-grandmother, Kale whispered. She didn't know how she knew, but she did. The same dark hair, the same sharp cheekbones, the same defiant tilt of the chin. Dominic moved to a shelf, pulling down a leather-bound book. He opened it, and his face went white. These are the true pack records. The ones my family sealed away. His voice was hollow. It's all here. The battle omegas, the willing bonds, the balanced power structure. And then, he turned pages, his hands shaking. The purge. Gods, the things they did. Kale came to look over his shoulder. The pages detailed systematic destruction. Families torn apart. Children taken from their mothers. Omegas who refused to submit, publicly executed. And leading it all, Alpha Cassius Blackwood, Dominic's ancestor. My bloodline did this, Dominic said quietly. My family built their power on genocide. Yes, Kale said, because there was no gentler truth. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never expected to see.
Shame.
I didn't know, he said. Would it have mattered? Would you have chosen differently if you had? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I was raised to believe Omegas were lesser, that dominance was natural, that questioning pack hierarchy was weakness. But standing here, seeing what my ancestors erased. He gestured helplessly at the archives around them. How do you come back from this? How do you make amends for generations of evil? I don't know if you can, Kale said honestly. They stood in silence, the weight of history pressing down on them both. Through their bond, Kale felt Dominic's turmoil, his worldview cracking and reforming. It didn't absolve him. It didn't change what he'd done to her. But it was something. There are journals here, she said, moving to another shelf. Written by Battle Omegas. Maybe they explain how the power worked, how the bonds were meant to function. She pulled one down, its pages yellowed with age. The handwriting was elegant, feminine. She began to read aloud. The bond between Alpha and Battle Omega is sacred, built on choice and equality. The Alpha provides strength and protection. The Omega provides balance and intuition. Together they are whole. Apart they are diminished. But the bond must be freely given, or it becomes poison. Force a bond, and the ancient curse awakens, stripping the Alpha of power until nothing remains but the choice. Accept equality or perish. Kale looked up to find Dominic staring at her. Accept equality or perish, he repeated. That's the curse. That's what we're facing. Can you do that? Kale asked. Can the great Alpha Dominic accept an Omega as his equal? A week ago, I would have said no without hesitation. And now? Dominic moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the toll the curse was taking. Now I'm learning that everything I was taught was a lie. That my power was built on the suffering of people like you. That the Omega I tried to break is actually the descendant of warriors who could have crushed me. He laughed bitterly. So to answer your question, I don't know if I can accept it. But I'm beginning to think I'll have to try, or we'll both die. It wasn't a declaration of change. It wasn't even close to redemption. But it was honest. Kale was about to respond when the bond suddenly flared with warning. Both of them tensed, sensing danger. Someone's coming, Dominic said. They heard footsteps on the stairs, multiple sets, moving quickly. Dominic moved to stand between Cale and the door, an instinctive protective gesture that surprised them both. Beta Marcus appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. Behind him stood 3 other wolves, their expressions grim. Alpha, you need to return to the surface immediately. What's happened? Your grandmother.
She's collapsed.
The healers say she's dying, and she's asking for you both. Marcus's eyes flickered between them. She says she has one more secret to tell before the curse takes everything. Cale felt dread pool in her stomach. Through the bond, she felt Dominic's fear, his love for his grandmother mixing with terror at what secret could be worse than what they'd already learned. They ran. Dominic's grandmother lay in her chambers, skin paper-thin and gray. At 80, Elena Blackwood had been the pack's steady hand, the one who'd raised Dominic after his mother died. Now she looked ancient beyond measure, as if years were falling away by the second. Dominic, she breathed as he knelt beside her bed. I'm here, Gran. His voice cracked on the words. Her milky eyes found Cale standing in the doorway. The Omega-2. Good. You both need to hear this. Don't speak, Dominic said. Save your strength. For what? I'm dying, child. The curse is taking me because I helped create it. She coughed, blood flecking her lips. I need to tell you the truth about your father, about the claiming, about all of it. Cale moved closer despite herself. The old woman's hand shot out, surprisingly strong, gripping her wrist. Your mother, Elena whispered to Cale. Sarah Moonwhisper. I knew her. We were friends before everything went wrong. Cale's heart stuttered. You knew my mother? She was beautiful and fierce, everything a Battle Omega should be. And my son, Dominic's father, wanted her desperately. Elena's eyes closed. He courted her properly at first. But when she chose your father instead, a gentle beta who loved her truly, Marcus Blackwood's pride couldn't bear it. He began planning revenge. What did he do? Dominic's voice was barely a whisper. He manipulated pack politics, isolated your family, made life harder for them year by year. When your mother died in childbirth, Cale, it wasn't natural. Marcus had the midwife give her poison, enough to weaken her, but not enough to be detected. She bled out while your father screamed for help that came too late. Cale couldn't breathe. Her mother's death, the tragedy that had shattered her family, had been murder. After that, your father fell apart, Elena continued. Marcus saw his chance. He planted evidence, suggesting your family was plotting against the pack. Small things at first, then larger. He was building a case for purging your bloodline entirely, the last of the Battle Omegas. But my brother's assassination attempt was real, Cale managed. Was it? Elena looked at her with pity. Marcus cornered Matthias, told him that Dominic planned to take you as his concubine, that you'd suffer unspeakably unless Matthias acted. Your brother was desperate, grieving, and Marcus gave him a weapon and a plan guaranteed to fail. The room spun. Everything Cale had believed about that night, about her brother's betrayal, crumbled to dust. Dominic stood abruptly, his face white. You're saying my father orchestrated everything? The assassination attempt, the trial, forcing me to take Cale as punishment. He wanted you to complete what he started, to break the last Battle Omega bloodline. He thought if you took her in violence, bonded her against her will, it would destroy any power she might possess. Elena coughed again. What he didn't expect was the curse. None of us did. We'd forgotten that forced bonds trigger ancient magic. Why didn't you tell me this before? Dominic demanded. Because I'm a coward. Because I loved my son despite his evil. Because I hoped you'd be different, and telling you would make you hate him. Tears slid down her weathered cheeks. But the curse is forcing truth. It's burning through the pack, making us all face what we've done. I'm dying because I kept silent while innocent people suffered. Cale's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, mind reeling. Her mother, murdered. Her brother, manipulated. Her claiming, part of a decades-long plot to destroy her family. And Dominic. Through their bond, she felt his anguish, his rage, his complete devastation. He'd thought himself a monster for taking her as punishment. Now he learned he was just a puppet in his father's genocidal plan. Where is he? Dominic's voice was ice. Where's my father? In the old Alpha's lodge, where he always is. Waiting. Elena gripped her grandson's hand. He knew the curse would force the truth out eventually. He's prepared for your confrontation. Good. Dominic's alpha power surged, what little remained. I'm going to kill him. No, Kale said quietly. He spun to face her. No? After everything he's done to you, to your family? If you kill him in rage, you become him. You prove that alpha power means domination and violence. Kale stood on shaking legs. The curse wants us to break the cycle, not continue it. You can't expect me to forgive him. I don't. I expect you to be better than him. Dominic stared at her, emotions warring across his face. Through the bond, she felt his desire for vengeance, his need to hurt the man who'd caused such suffering. But underneath, she felt something else, recognition that she was right. Elena made a soft sound. They both turned to find her eyes glazing over. Dominic dropped to his knees, taking her hand. Break the cycle, Elena whispered. Be the alpha this pack deserves. And Kale, child, reclaim what was stolen. You are Battle Omega, heir to power and dignity. Don't let anyone make you less. Her last breath rattled out. The silence was absolute. Kale watched Dominic cradle his grandmother's body, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She should feel satisfaction watching him suffer. He'd caused her such pain. But through their bond, she felt his grief as if it were her own, and despite everything, it hurt. She moved to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. I'm sorry, she said softly. She was the only one who loved me without conditions. His voice was broken. And she died because of my family's sins. She died because she chose truth over silence at the end. That matters. They stayed like that, Alpha and Omega, forced together by curse and circumstance, mourning a woman who'd tried too late to make things right. After a time, healers came to prepare the body. Dominic stood, his face a mask of ice. I need to address the pack. My grandmother's death, the curse, all of it is spreading chaos. Let me come with you. He looked at her in surprise. Why would you? Because we're bound, and fighting that only makes things worse. Because the pack needs to see us together, not tearing each other apart. Kale met his eyes. And because I want your father to see exactly what his plan created. Not a broken Omega, but one who's reclaiming her power. Something like admiration flickered in Dominic's gaze. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. They walked to the great hall together, neither leading nor following, but side by side. Pack members stopped and stared. Whispers followed in their wake. When they entered the hall, the gathered wolves fell silent. Alpha Marcus Blackwood stood at the far end, a tall man in his 60s, silver-haired and radiating authority. When he saw them, his lips curved in a cold smile. Ah, my son, and his Omega pet, come to blame me for your grandmother's death. I came to hear you admit the truth, Dominic said, his voice carrying through the hall. All of it. Truth? What truth would that be? That you murdered Sarah Moonwhisper. That you manipulated her son into a false assassination attempt. That you forced me to take Kale as punishment to complete your genocide of Battle Omegas. Shocked gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's smile never wavered. Such wild accusations. Your grandmother filled your head with stories as she died, I see. They're not stories. I read the sealed archives. I know what Cassius did, what you've continued. The systematic destruction of an entire line because you couldn't control them. Control is what keeps Pack strong, Marcus said coldly. Omegas with power upset the natural order. They make alphas weak, question hierarchy, spread chaos. Or, Kale spoke up, her voice clear and strong, they provide balance and strength. The way they did for centuries before men like you decided power meant domination. Marcus's eyes fixed on her, and she saw naked hatred there. You should be broken by now. Submissive. Ruined. Instead, you stand tall and speak out of turn. The curse has infected you with delusions of worth. The curse has reminded me what I am. Kale felt power surge through her, the borrowed alpha strength mixing with her awakening omega gifts. I am Battle Omega, heir to Alara Moonwhisper, and I will not bow. The temperature in the hall dropped. Frost spread across the floor beneath Kale's feet, a physical manifestation of her growing power. Pack members backed away in awe and fear. Marcus's composure finally cracked. Dominic, control your Omega before I do it for you. She's not mine to control, Dominic said quietly. And even if she were, I wouldn't. You raised me to dominate and break, but you were wrong. About everything. I raised you to be strong. You raised me to be cruel. There's a difference. Dominic stepped forward. The forced bond you made me create has awakened a curse. It's killing me slowly, transferring my power to Kale. Soon I'll have nothing left. And you know what? I'm starting to think that's justice. Marcus's face contorted with rage. You're weak, just like your mother was. She died crying for mercy. Dominic's control snapped. He lunged at his father, and suddenly the hall erupted into chaos. Pack members chose sides, some defending the former alpha, others standing with Dominic. Fighting broke out across the floor. But before any real damage could occur, Kale acted. Power exploded from her in a wave of silver light. Every wolf in the hall froze, held in place by an invisible force. The shock on their faces was absolute, none more so than Kale herself. Stop, she commanded, and her voice carried an authority she'd never possessed before. The fighting ceased. Wolves stood like statues, unable to move, their eyes wide with disbelief. Even Dominic was frozen mid-lunge, though through their bond, she felt his surprise rather than anger. Marcus stared at her in horror. Impossible. That level of power, it's what you try to destroy, Kale finished. She released the hold slowly, letting wolves regain control of their bodies. Her hands trembled. She'd never done anything like that before, hadn't even known she could. But you failed. My bloodline survived. And now the curse your arrogance awakened is forcing us all to face the truth. She turned to address the gathered pack. For generations, you've been told Omegas are weak, that we exist to serve, that alphas must dominate or chaos reigns. But those are lies built on genocide and fear. The truth is in the archives, 3 levels down, behind doors your leaders sealed. The truth is that Omegas and Alphas once ruled together, balanced each other, made packs stronger through partnership, not subjugation. She's manipulating you, Marcus snarled, using the curse to spread propaganda. Then explain this, Dominic said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. He pulled off his shirt, revealing his chest. Where once thick alpha markings had covered his skin, the natural tattoo-like marks that showed an alpha's strength, now only faint traces remained. The curse is stripping my power because I forced a bond, because I followed your orders and continued the cycle of abuse our family started. Look at me and see what happens when alphas take without consent. The silence was deafening. And look at her, Dominic continued, gesturing to Kale, growing stronger every day because she's reclaiming what should never have been taken. The curse isn't random. It's justice. Beta Marcus, Dominic's second-in-command, stepped forward. What do you propose, Alpha? If the curse continues, you'll die. Then I die, Dominic said simply. But the pack will know the truth before I do. The archives will be opened. The sealed histories will be taught. And no Omega will ever be forced into a bond again. You destroy pack hierarchy over one Omega? The former Alpha Marcus spat. I destroy pack hierarchy because it's built on lies and corpses, Dominic replied. You taught me that might makes right, that alphas deserve power by nature. But standing here, feeling my strength drain away while Kale's grows, I'm learning that power isn't about dominance. It's about choice. Kale felt something shift in their bond. Not warmth, not yet, but the thorns seemed less sharp, the darkness less absolute. Dominic was changing, truly changing, and the curse felt it. "This is weakness," Marcus declared. "The pack will tear itself apart without strong alpha rule. Or maybe," Kale said quietly, "the pack will finally be whole." Marcus looked between them, and Kale saw the moment he decided to act. His hand moved to his belt, pulling a silver blade, the same kind used in claiming ceremonies. "If I can't have a strong son, I'll have no son at all." He lunged at Dominic with supernatural speed. Kale reacted on instinct. Power surged through her, and suddenly she stood between them. The blade stopped inches from her chest. But she wasn't holding it. It hovered in midair, frozen by her will. "No more violence," she said. "No more death. The cycle ends now." Marcus struggled against her hold, his face purpling with rage. "You can't stop me forever, Omega. The moment you weaken, I'll finish this." "You're right," Kale agreed. "Which is why you're exiled. Leave this pack and never return." "You can't exile me. You're not the Alpha." "No," Dominic said, stepping beside Kale. "But I am. And I support her decision. You have until sunset to leave Pack lands. If you return, you'll be executed for attempted murder of the Alpha. You're both fools. Without me, without the old ways, this pack will crumble. Then we'll rebuild it properly," Dominic said. "From ashes, if we must." Marcus looked at his son with such hatred that several pack members gasped. But he also saw the futility of fighting further. Kale held more power than anyone in the room, and Dominic had the loyalty of enough wolves to enforce his commands. "You're weak," Marcus said one last time. "Both of you. And this pack deserves what's coming." He turned and strode from the hall, his footsteps echoing off stone walls. No one followed him. No one spoke in his defense. When he was gone, Dominic swayed. Kale caught him before he fell, his weight suddenly heavy against her. Through their bond, she felt his absolute exhaustion. The confrontation had drained what little strength he had left. "Get the healers," Beta Marcus commanded, rushing forward.
Now.
But as they carried Dominic toward his chambers, Kale felt something terrifying through their bond. He was fading fast. The curse, accelerated by the stress and emotion, was consuming him. She ran alongside the healers, ignoring their protests. When they laid him on his bed, his skin was gray, his breathing shallow. The alpha markings on his chest had vanished entirely. "What's happening?" Beta Marcus demanded. "The curse is finishing what it started," Mother Iris said, appearing in the doorway. His father's presence, the confrontation, the emotional toll, it's pushed him to the breaking point. He is ours at most. Kale sank to her knees beside the bed, gripping Dominic's hand.
No.
Not after everything, not after he finally started to change. Through their bond, she felt him slipping away. His consciousness was fading, his life force draining into her like water through a sieve. She tried to push it back, to refuse the power the curse was giving her, but it wouldn't stop. "There's only one way to save him," Mother Iris said softly. "The curse will only break if the bond becomes real. If you willingly accept him as your equal, if you choose the connection that was forced upon you." "I can't," Kale whispered. "How can I choose the man who destroyed my life?" "He didn't destroy your life, child. His father did. Dominic was a weapon, sharpened by cruelty and wielded by evil. But weapons can be reforged." Kale looked down at Dominic's face, peaceful in unconsciousness. She thought of the man who'd dragged her before the council. The man who'd forced a bond to save his sister. The man who'd admitted his family's evil and tried to make it right. The man who was dying because he'd chosen truth over power. She hated him. She should hate him forever. But through their bond, she felt his dreams. She saw his memories of abuse, of being broken, and reformed into the perfect, heartless alpha. She saw his moment of choice when his father threatened his sister, the impossible position he'd been placed in. She saw his grief at his grandmother's death, his horror at learning his family's full history, his genuine attempt to change. He wasn't innocent, but he was trying. "If I do this," Cale said, "if I choose this bond, what happens to me? You become truly bonded to him. For life. His pain will be yours. His joy will be yours. You'll never be fully separate again. And if I don't," he dies. "You become the most powerful wolf in this pack. And you live alone with power built on his death." Cale closed her eyes. She thought of her mother, who'd chosen love with a gentle beta over power with an alpha. She thought of her brother, manipulated into violence. She thought of all the battle omegas before her who'd been betrayed by the alphas they trusted. Could she be different? Could she choose to trust when every instinct screamed to protect herself? Through the bond, she felt Dominic's heartbeat slowing. Moments left, not hours. She made her choice. Cale leaned down, pressing her lips to Dominic's. The kiss was gentle, tentative, nothing like the brutal claiming ceremony. But the moment their lips touched, power exploded between them. The corrupted bond shattered like glass. The thorns dissolved. The darkness burned away in silver light. And in its place, something new formed. A bond built on choice, on equality, on the decision to try despite everything. It wasn't love. That would take time if it came at all. But it was real. Dominic gasped, his eyes flying open. Color flooded back into his face. The alpha markings didn't return to his chest, but his strength did, flowing back from Cale in a balanced exchange. Not domination, but partnership. He stared up at her, shocked. "You saved me." "I saved us," Cale corrected. "The curse is broken. We're bonded properly now. As equals."
Why?
"After everything I did. Because holding on to hate would have killed us both. Because you were trying to change. Because..." She paused, searching for the right words. "Because maybe broken people can help each other heal." Dominic sat up slowly, and for the first time since the claiming, the bond between them felt right. Not comfortable, not easy, but right. Around them, pack members who'd gathered in the doorway stared in amazement. The curse that had threatened to destroy them all had been broken by the simplest and hardest thing: choice. But as Cale helped Dominic stand, she felt something else through their new bond. A warning, a presence, approaching danger. "Your father," she breathed. "He's not leaving." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I know. I feel it too. He's planning something." Through their bond, they both felt the same truth. Their trials were far from over. That night, they both collapsed into exhausted sleep in separate beds, Dominic in his chambers, Cale in the room adjoining. The bond no longer demanded painful proximity, but neither was ready to share space willingly. Cale slipped into dreams quickly, grateful for the escape. She was running through the forest, younger, perhaps 11 years old. Her mother's hand gripped hers tightly. "Run, Cale," Sarah Moonwhisper urged, her beautiful face twisted with fear. "Don't stop, no matter what you hear." "Mama, what's happening?" "They've come for us." "I should have seen it sooner." Her mother pulled her behind a massive oak. "Listen to me. You are Battle Omega. When the time comes, your power will awaken. But until then, hide what you are. Be small, be quiet, be invisible." "I don't understand." Footsteps crashed through the underbrush. Male voices hunting. "I love you," Sarah whispered, kissing Cale's forehead. Then she pushed her daughter into a hollow in the tree's roots. "Stay hidden. Stay silent." Sarah stood, drawing the hunters away. Cale watched through a gap in the roots as her mother ran, leading them away from her hiding spot. She wanted to scream, to call her back, but her mother's command held her frozen. Then the memory shifted. She was older now, 13. Her father sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands, while young Matthias tried to comfort him. "Papa, it's okay. We'll be okay," Matthias said, though his voice shook. "They're taking everything," Marcus Ashwood choked out. "The council says we owe debts we never incurred. They're seizing our lands, our home. And there's nothing I can do, because I'm just a beta. If your mother were here..." "But she's not," Matthias said bitterly. She died and left us alone. Don't speak of her that way. Kale watched from the doorway, understanding now what she'd been too young to grasp then. Her family hadn't spiraled into poverty by accident. They'd been deliberately destroyed, piece by piece, by Alpha Marcus Blackwood. The dream shifted again, the night of Matthias's arrest. But this time, Kale saw what she hadn't witnessed before. She saw through her brother's eyes as Marcus Blackwood cornered him in an alley. "Your sister is very beautiful," Marcus said casually. "My son has noticed her." "Stay away from Kale," Matthias growled. "Or what? You'll fight the alpha son?"
Don't be stupid, boy.
"But I'll make you a deal. Dominic has become too soft, too questioning. He needs to be hardened, reminded of what it means to be alpha. I need someone to attempt his assassination. Someone who'll fail, of course, but who'll give my son reason to take vengeance." "You're insane. I'm practical. You do this, and I'll ensure your sister is never touched. She'll marry a decent beta, live a quiet life. Refuse, and I'll give her to Dominic as a concubine. He'll destroy her slowly, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Kale watched her brother's face crumble, saw the impossible choice that mirrored Dominic's own. Matthias had attacked Dominic to save her, just as Dominic had claimed her to save his sister. They'd both been pawns. The realization shattered something in Kale's chest, and suddenly she was falling through darkness, through layers of dream into something deeper. She landed in Dominic's nightmare. He was young, maybe 16, standing before his father in a training ring. His body was covered in bruises, blood dripping from a split above his eye. Again, Alpha Marcus commanded, "Father, please, I can't." Marcus's fist connected with his son's face, sending him sprawling. "Alphas don't beg. Alphas don't show weakness. Now get up and fight me properly, or I'll make you fight your sister instead." Young Dominic struggled to his feet, swaying. He raised his fists, but his father was faster, stronger, brutal. Each blow was calculated to hurt without causing permanent damage. Each strike came with a lesson about strength, domination, power. "You'll be alpha one day," Marcus said, circling his son like a predator. "But first, I need to beat the softness out of you. Your mother made you weak with her gentle words and kindness. I'll remake you properly." The scene shifted. Dominic was older now, 22 perhaps. He sat at his mother's bedside, holding her frail hand. "You don't have to be like him," she whispered. "You have a choice, Dominic. Be the alpha this pack deserves, not the one he's trying to create." "I don't know how to be anything else, Mother." "Then learn. Please, for me, try to be better." "I promise," he'd said. But after she died, his father's influence had grown absolute. Kale watched as Dominic hardened year by year, becoming the cold alpha she'd first met. She saw him make cruel decisions, hurt people unnecessarily, rule through fear. She saw him try to be better and fail, his father's voice always in his head. Kindness is weakness. Mercy is failure. Dominance is survival. Then came the day his father gave him the order. "Take the Omega as punishment," Marcus commanded. "The Moon Whisper Girl. Break her publicly, bond her against her will. Show the pack what happens to those who betray us." "That's too far even for you. Is it? Or are you too soft to do what needs doing?" Marcus leaned close. "Your sister Elena spoke out against me in council yesterday. Called my policies harsh. If you won't take the Omega, I'll give her to Garrett instead. You know his appetites. You know what he'll do to that girl before he bonds her." Kale felt Dominic's horror, his impossible choice. Take her himself and try to minimize the damage, or let someone truly sadistic destroy her completely. He'd chosen what he thought was mercy. The dream shifted one final time, and suddenly Kale and Dominic were both there, aware of each other in the shared nightmare space. They stood in a burning building, the Pack House Archives. Flames consumed the records, the books, the evidence of Omega history. Kale's ancestor Alara and Dominic's ancestor Cassius fought in the center of the inferno. "You swore to protect us," Alara screamed, her battle Omega power blazing silver. "We bonded willingly, fought beside you, gave everything. And you became too powerful, Cassius replied coldly. Omegas who don't submit are omegas who threaten order. Better to erase you all than risk losing control. Then may you never know peace, Illyra snarled as the flames consumed her. May every forced bond awaken our curse. May every alpha who takes without consent suffer as we've suffered. And may the cycle only break when one has the courage to choose equality over power. The curse's origin laid bare. Cale and Dominic stood together, watching the past unfold. When the flames finally died, they were alone in ash and darkness. I saw your memories, Dominic said quietly. Everything my father did to your family. The systematic destruction. Your brother's impossible choice. I saw yours, Cale replied.
What he did to you.
How he shaped you into someone you never wanted to be. They were silent for a long moment, processing. I'm still responsible for my actions, Dominic said. Knowing why I became cruel doesn't erase the cruelty. No, Cale agreed. But it helps me understand. We were both his victims in different ways. That doesn't make us the same. No, she said again. You had power. You made choices. But you were also trapped, just differently than I was. Dominic moved closer in the dream space. When you chose to accept the bond, to save me, why? You could have let me die. Taken my power. Become the strongest wolf in the pack. Because that's not who I am, Cale said. My mother chose love over power. My ancestors believed in balance over domination. And because...
She paused.
Because I saw you trying to change, and I thought maybe we could break the cycle together. I don't deserve your mercy. Probably not, Cale admitted. But maybe none of us deserve the grace we're given. Maybe that's what makes it grace. Dominic's expression in the dream was vulnerable in a way she'd never seen in waking. I'm terrified, he confessed. Of leading differently. Of being weak. Of everything my father said I'd become if I let go of absolute control. You won't be weak. You'll be balanced. There's a difference. How do you know? Because now you have me, Cale said simply. Battle Omegas weren't meant to serve Dominic. We were meant to stand beside Alphas as equals, balancing their strength with our own. That's what the bond is supposed to be. I've never been equals with anyone. Then learn. We'll figure it out together. The dream space began to fracture, reality pulling them back. But before they woke, Dominic reached out, taking Cale's hand in the dream.
Thank you, he said.
For choosing life over revenge. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. Don't make me regret it, Cale replied, but there was no heat in her words. They woke simultaneously, gasping, the shared nightmare lingering like smoke. Through their bond, they felt each other's presence in adjoining rooms, felt the new understanding that had formed between them. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even close to trust. But it was a beginning. Cale rose from her bed, padding to the door between their rooms. She knocked softly. Come in, Dominic's voice called. She found him sitting on the edge of his bed, head in his hands. He looked up when she entered, and she saw her own exhaustion reflected in his eyes. That was real, he said. The curse, it's forcing us to see each other's truth. I know. Cale, he struggled for words. Seeing what my father did to your family, to your brother, I can't. I know, she said again, moving to sit beside him. Not touching, but close. And I saw what he did to you. It doesn't excuse anything, but it explains a lot. They sat in silence as dawn light crept through the windows. What happens now? Dominic finally asked. Now we both heal, Cale said. And we figure out how to lead this pack together. As equals. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I, Cale admitted. But we'll learn, or we'll fail trying. Dominic looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time she saw him without the armor of alpha arrogance. I'm sorry.
For everything.
For the claiming, for the pain, for all of it. I know, Cale said. And through their bond, she felt the truth of his regret. But sorry isn't enough. You'll need to prove it with actions, not words. I will, he promised. Before either could say more, a commotion erupted outside. Shouting, running footsteps, the sound of alarm bells. They rushed to the window and froze. The pack house was surrounded by wolves, at least 50 of them, carrying weapons and torches. At their head stood Alpha Marcus Blackwood, very much not exiled. And beside him stood a woman Cale had never seen before, radiating power that made even Marcus seem weak. "Who is that?" Cale breathed. Dominic's face had gone white. "The Rogue Queen. She rules the outcast packs in the Northern Territories. And if she's allied with my father, we're all in terrible danger." Through their bond, Cale felt his fear, and she understood why. They'd survived the curse, learned to work together, but now faced an external threat neither was prepared to handle. Marcus's voice boomed across the grounds. "Surrender the Omega and abdicate your position, or watch your pack burn." The pack house erupted into chaos. Wolves scrambled to defensive positions while others herded children to the inner chambers. Through the windows, Cale watched the Rogue Queen's forces spread out, surrounding them completely. Beta Marcus burst into the room. "Alpha, we're outnumbered 3-1. The Rogue Queen brought her best fighters." "How did my father even reach her?" Dominic demanded, pulling on armor. "The Rogue territories are weeks away." "He's been planning this longer than we knew," Mother Iris said, appearing in the doorway. Her ancient face was grim. "I should have seen it. The exile was too easy. He wanted to leave, wanted us to think we'd won." Cale moved to the window, studying the forces below. The Rogue Queen was tall and striking, with silver-white hair and scars marking her face. Power radiated from her in visible waves. Why would she help him? "Because he's promised her something she wants," Mother Iris replied. "The Rogue packs have been trying to legitimize themselves for decades. An alliance with an established pack, especially one with alpha bloodlines like ours, would give her that." "In exchange for what?" Cale asked, though she already knew the answer. "You," Dominic said quietly. "He's promised her you. Battle Omega bloodline, awakened power. You be the ultimate prize for someone trying to build an army." Through their bond, Cale felt his fury, his protective instinct warring with strategic thinking. She placed a hand on his arm. "We need a plan, not rage."
He took a breath, nodding.
"You're right. Beta Marcus, what are our defenses?" "The pack house can be sealed, but not forever. We have supplies for maybe a week if we ration. Our fighters are good, but inexperienced against rogue tactics." "And Mother Iris, the curse?" Cale asked. "Is there anything about it that could help us?" The old seer's milky eyes gleamed. "Perhaps. The curse was designed to force balance between alphas and omegas. Now that your bond is true, you both possess unique power. Separately, you're strong. Together, you might be unstoppable." "We've never trained together," Dominic objected. "Then you'll learn quickly," Mother Iris replied. "Or you'll die." A voice boomed from outside, magically amplified. "Dominic Blackwood, you have 1 hour to surrender the Omega. After that, we attack, and I cannot guarantee the safety of your pack members, especially the young ones." Dominic's jaw clenched. "He's threatening children." "He's desperate," Cale said, "which makes him dangerous." Through the windows, she watched Marcus and the Rogue Queen conferring. They looked confident, assured of their victory. And why wouldn't they be? They had numbers, experience, and surprise on their side. But they didn't have what Cale and Dominic had. "I have an idea," Cale said slowly. "But you're not going to like it." Dominic turned to her. "Tell me." "I surrender myself. Walk out there willingly." "Absolutely not." "Let me finish," Cale insisted. "I walk out, draw them away from the pack house. While they're focused on me, you lead a strike team to take out their command structure. Without leadership, rogue packs fracture easily. That's suicide. The moment you're in their hands." "I'm Battle Omega," Cale interrupted. "My power has been growing. I can protect myself long enough for you to act." "You don't know the extent of your abilities," Dominic argued. "You've been awakened less than a week." "Then we don't have a choice. It's risk me or risk everyone." Through their bond, she felt his refusal forming, his instinct to protect her overriding strategy. She pressed harder. Dominic, this is what battle omegas were meant for. We fought beside alphas, not behind them. Trust me. I just got you back, he said quietly. I just started understanding what we could be. And you want me to watch you walk into enemy hands. I want you to trust that I'm strong enough to survive until you can get to me. Their eyes locked. Through their bond, emotions flowed freely. His fear for her, her determination, both their awareness that this might be their only chance. There's another option, Mother Iris said. The complete bond. They both turned to her. What do you mean, complete? Kale asked. You broke the curse by accepting the bond willingly. But you haven't completed it. A true mate bond requires the final ceremony, the joining of souls entirely. If you do that, your powers would merge completely. You'd have access to each other's strengths, fight as one being in two bodies. That's permanent, Dominic said. More permanent than what we have now. Yes, Mother Iris confirmed. You'd be bound for life, in ways that can never be severed. You'd feel each other's pain, share each other's thoughts, be connected on every level. Some say it's beautiful. Others say it's the ultimate loss of self. Kale's heart raced. The bond they had now was already intimate, already uncomfortable in its intensity. Going deeper, becoming more intertwined, that was terrifying. But through their bond, she felt Dominic's thoughts, and she knew he was thinking the same thing she was. If it gave them a chance to save the pack, to defeat Marcus and the Rogue Queen, wasn't it worth the risk? How long does the ceremony take? Dominic asked. Minutes, if you're willing. Hours, if you resist. They looked at each other again. Through their bond, Kale felt the question he wasn't asking aloud. Are you ready for that? To be bound to me forever? She wasn't. Not remotely. But they were out of time and options. Do it, she said. Kale. We don't have another choice, Dominic. You know that. He searched her face, then nodded slowly. All right. But after this, after we survive, we're going to take time to figure out what this means. No more rushing, no more crisis forcing our hand. Agreed. Mother Iris moved quickly, gathering supplies. Salt for a circle, candles for the cardinal points, a ceremonial blade different from the one used in their forced claiming. Stand facing each other, hands joined, she instructed. They did, and Kale felt the bond between them pulse in anticipation. This ceremony requires total honesty, Mother Iris warned. You must each state your truth, your full truth, before the bond can complete. Nothing hidden, nothing held back. The magic will know if you lie. Kale's mouth went dry. Total honesty meant admitting things she barely admitted to herself. Mother Iris began chanting in the old language, the same words used for centuries to bind mates. But this time, there was no force, no cruelty. Just two people choosing to be vulnerable. Dominic, Mother Iris prompted. Speak your truth. He took a breath, his hands tightening on Kale's. I was raised to dominate, to control, to see omegas as lesser. You terrified me from the moment we bonded because you challenged everything I'd been taught. I wanted to break you because you made me question myself. He paused. But you didn't break. You grew stronger, and in doing so, you showed me what real strength looks like. Not domination, but resilience. Not control, but choice. I don't love you. We're not there yet, may never be. But I respect you. I admire you. And I'm grateful you chose to save me when you could have let me die. The bond flared silver between them. Kale, Mother Iris said softly. Your turn. Kale's throat felt tight. I hated you. I still partly hate you for what you did, for the choice you made even if it was impossible. You took away my autonomy, my future, my freedom. Her voice cracked. But in the shared nightmares, I saw that you were broken too. Differently than me, but broken nonetheless. And I realized that holding on to hate was destroying us both. She met his eyes. You're trying to change. You're trying to be better. And that's more than most people do. So I choose this bond not because I have to, but because I believe we can heal each other. Because together, we might actually change things. The bond blazed brighter. Now, Mother Iris said, the final question. Do you both accept this bond, knowing it can never be undone? Knowing you'll be connected for life, sharing joy and pain, strength and weakness, until death. Kale felt the weight of the question. This was it.
The point of no return.
I accept, Dominic said. She took a breath. I accept. The bond exploded. Power surged through them both, silver and gold intertwining, alpha and omega merging into something entirely new. Kale gasped as she felt Dominic's strength flow into her, not dominating but complementing. And she felt her own power flow into him, balancing his aggression with intuition, his force with finesse. Images flashed through her mind, not nightmares this time, but possibilities. The two of them fighting side by side, leading together, building something new from the ashes of the old. When the light faded, they stood transformed. Kale could feel Dominic's presence in her mind, not invasive but there, a constant awareness. And she knew he felt the same from her. How do you feel? Mother Iris asked. Complete, Dominic said, sounding odd. Terrified, Kale admitted, but also ready. Through their new bond, she felt his abilities at her fingertips. His alpha strength, his enhanced senses, his battle instincts. And he had access to hers, the growing omega power, the intuitive magic, the ability to sense emotions and truth. Your hour is up, Dominic. Marcus's voice boomed. What's your answer? Dominic and Kale looked at each other and smiled. It wasn't warm or loving, but it was unified. Let's show them what a real bond looks like, Kale said. They walked to the balcony together, stepping out to face the assembled forces. Below, Marcus's smug expression faltered when he saw them side by side, power radiating from them both. Here's my answer, Father, Dominic called down. We're done with your manipulation. Done with your old ways. This Omega is my equal, my partner, and if you want her, you'll have to go through both of us. The rogue queen laughed. Brave words, boy. But two wolves, bonded or not, can't defeat an army. You're right, Kale called back. But we're not just two wolves. At her gesture, pack members began emerging from the pack house, taking positions on the walls. Not many. They were still outnumbered, but enough to show unity. Beta Marcus stepped forward. We stand with our alpha and his mate. Not because we're forced to, but because we choose to. Others echoed the sentiment. One by one, wolves who'd served under the old brutal regime chose a new path. Marcus Blackwood's face purpled with rage. You're all fools. I made this pack strong. You made it cruel, Dominic replied. There's a difference. And I'm done continuing your legacy. Then you'll die with it, Marcus snarled. He turned to the rogue queen. Attack. The rogue forces surged forward. Kale felt Dominic's battle instincts kick in, and through their bond, she knew what he was planning before he moved. They jumped from the balcony together, landing in the courtyard with supernatural grace. The first wave of rogues hit them like a tsunami, but Kale and Dominic moved as one. When he dodged left, she struck right. When she sensed an attack from behind, he was already turning to block it. Their bond allowed them to fight with perfect synchronization, each covering the other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. Kale's Omega power manifested in ways she'd never imagined. Silver light burst from her hands, creating barriers that deflected attacks. When rogues got too close, she felt Dominic's alpha strength flow through her, allowing her to match their physical force blow for blow. Dominic, in turn, gained access to her intuition. He sensed attacks before they came, felt the emotional currents of the battle, knew instinctively where to strike for maximum effect. The precision of Omega magic merged with alpha power created something devastating. They cut through the first wave like wolves through snow. Impossible, the rogue queen breathed, watching from her position. They're too synchronized. They're newly bonded, Marcus argued, though his confidence wavered. They'll make mistakes. But they didn't. Beta Marcus led the pack's defenders in supporting strikes, but it was Kale and Dominic who held the center. Where they fought, rogue forces fell back, unwilling to face their combined fury. Then the rogue queen herself entered the battle. She was fast, faster than anyone Kale had ever seen. She appeared behind Kale in a blur, claws aimed at her throat. But Dominic felt the attack through their bond and spun, catching the queen's wrist mid-strike. "You're strong," the queen acknowledged, twisting free. "But I've been fighting for 50 years. Your children playing at war." She attacked them both simultaneously, her movements a deadly dance. Kale barely blocked a strike that would have gutted her. Dominic took a slash across his ribs that made them both gasp through their bond. "We need a new strategy," Kale thought, and Dominic heard her through their connection. "I'm open to suggestions," he thought back. They circled the queen, buying time. Through their bond, Kale accessed memories of Dominic's training, decades of fighting technique. And Dominic accessed her intuitive understanding of energy flows, omega magic that could disrupt and redirect power. "Together?" Kale asked silently. "Together," Dominic confirmed. They moved in perfect unison. Kale channeled her power through Dominic, amplifying his alpha strength to supernatural levels. Dominic channeled his force through her magic, giving her attacks devastating physical impact. The result was overwhelming. When the queen struck at Kale, she didn't dodge. She absorbed the impact with omega magic and redirected it back tenfold. The queen staggered. When she turned to Dominic, his blow carried not just physical force, but magical resonance that sent her flying across the courtyard. "This isn't possible," the queen gasped, struggling to rise. "No bond should be this strong." "That's because you've never seen a true bond," Kale said. "Only the broken, forced ones that create rogues like you." The queen's eyes flashed with old pain. "I was forced into a bond too, Omega, by an alpha who thought he owned me. I killed him and took his power. That's how I built my army from wolves who refused to submit." "Then you should understand," Dominic said. "What my father did, what my ancestors did, it was wrong. But continuing the cycle of violence doesn't fix it. Pretty words won't change the world." "No," Kale agreed. "But maybe we can, one pack at a time." The queen studied them, and for a moment, Kale saw uncertainty in her eyes. A woman who'd spent decades fighting, who'd built an empire on rage and revenge, suddenly faced with something she'd never expected, a willing, equal bond. "If I retreat," the queen said slowly, "your father will try something else. Marcus Blackwood doesn't give up." "Let him try," Dominic replied. "We're not afraid of him anymore." The queen considered this, then nodded. "I didn't come here to help him, not really. I came to see if the rumors were true, that a forced bond had awakened the ancient curse, that a battle omega had risen. Now I've seen it." She looked at her forces. "Rogues, we're leaving." "You can't," Marcus roared, pushing through the crowd. "We had a deal." "Our deal is void," the queen said coldly. "You promised me a broken omega to control. But she's not broken, and I won't fight wolves who found what I never could, a true bond. Consider yourself lucky, Blackwood. If you'd succeeded in destroying that, I would have killed you myself for wasting it." She turned and walked away, her forces following. Within minutes, half the attacking army had vanished into the forest. Marcus stood alone, surrounded by pack members who no longer supported him, facing a son who'd finally surpassed him. "This isn't over," Marcus snarled. "It is," Dominic said. "You've lost everything, your position, your army, your power over this pack. The only question is whether you leave peacefully or we make you. I built this pack. Everything you have, you owe to me. We owe you nothing but scars and trauma," Kale said. "And we're done paying debts to ghosts." Marcus's face twisted with rage. He pulled a blade, silver, wickedly sharp, poisoned based on the purple sheen. "If I can't have this pack, no one will." He lunged at Dominic. Everything slowed. Kale saw the trajectory, felt Dominic's shock through their bond. The poison on that blade would kill within seconds, and Marcus had aimed for the heart. She moved without thinking. Her omega power exploded outward, creating a barrier of solid light between Marcus and Dominic. The blade struck the barrier and shattered. The force of the impact sent Marcus flying backward, where Beta Marcus and other pack members caught him. "It's over," Old Alpha, Beta Marcus said quietly, and there was finality in his voice. No more. They bound Marcus's hands, and Kale felt the fight drain from him. Without power, without supporters, without the tools of manipulation he'd relied on for decades, he was just an old man who'd spent his life hurting others. Take him to the holding cells, Dominic ordered. We'll decide his fate when tempers have cooled. As they dragged Marcus away, he looked at his son one last time. You'll regret this. Going soft, letting an Omega influence you, it'll destroy everything. Maybe, Dominic said. But at least it'll be a destruction I choose, not one inherited from you. When Marcus was gone, silence fell over the courtyard. Pack members stared at Kale and Dominic, at the evidence of their combined power, at the new dynamic they represented. Mother Iris stepped forward, her ancient face creased with a smile. Well fought, both of you. The curse is truly broken, replaced with something our ancestors would recognize, a balanced bond. What happens now? Someone called from the crowd. Dominic and Kale looked at each other, communicating silently through their bond. Then Kale spoke. Now we rebuild. Not the pack as it was, but as it should be. Where Omegas aren't forced into submission. Where power is shared, not hoarded. Where bonds are chosen freely. That's a pretty dream, an older pack member said skeptically. But change is hard. It is, Dominic agreed. And we won't get it right immediately. We'll make mistakes, face resistance, stumble and fall. But we'll do it together. All of us. Because a pack is only as strong as its weakest member, and we've spent too long making some members weak on purpose. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some supportive, some uncertain, some openly doubtful. The archives will be open today, Kale announced. Everyone will have access to the true history, not the version written by conquerors. You'll learn what Omegas once were, what the bonds were meant to be. And then you'll each choose, stay and help build something new, or leave to find packs that suit you better. No judgment, no punishment. And what about rogues? Someone asked. If we're soft, they'll see us as easy prey. We're not being soft, Dominic said. We're being strategic. The rogue packs exist because alphas like my father created them, wolves who fled forced bonds, who escaped cruelty, who had nowhere else to go. If we change that, if we offer a better way, maybe we can bring some of them home. And if they attack anyway? Then we fight, Kale said simply. Battle Omegas weren't pacifists. We were warriors. But we fought to protect, not to dominate. There's a difference. The crowd slowly dispersed, some to tend the wounded, others to begin repairs, still others to process everything that had happened. Through their bond, Kale felt Dominic's exhaustion matching her own. That was, he started, terrifying, exhilarating, completely insane.
Kale finished.
All of that. He smiled slightly. We made quite a team. We did.
She paused.
How do you feel about the complete bond now that the adrenaline's fading? Through their connection, she felt his honest answer before he spoke it. Overwhelming. Intimate in ways I didn't expect. But also, right? I can feel you in my mind, your presence, your thoughts. It should feel invasive, but it doesn't. I know what you mean, Kale admitted. I was terrified of losing myself, of being consumed by you. But instead, I feel more myself than ever. Like I finally have someone who truly understands, even though we still have so much to work through. Even though, she agreed. The bond doesn't erase what happened, doesn't magic away the trauma or the hurt. But maybe it gives us a foundation to heal from. They stood together in the courtyard as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Around them, the pack worked to rebuild what the battle had damaged. We should address your father, Dominic said quietly. Decide his fate. Tomorrow, Kale said. Tonight, we rest. We celebrate surviving. We let ourselves feel the victory before facing the next crisis. Dominic started to argue, then stopped. Through their bond, he felt her wisdom, her understanding that rushing from one crisis to another would break them both. You're right, he said. Tomorrow is soon enough. They turned to head inside, and Kale stumbled. The exhaustion hit all at once. Physical, emotional, magical. She'd expended more power today than she'd known she possessed. Dominic caught her, his arm around her waist. "I've got you." "I hate that I need help," Cale muttered. "I know. But that's what the bond means. Sometimes I'll carry you. Sometimes you'll carry me. Neither is weakness." She looked up at him, this man who destroyed her life and then helped her rebuild it into something new. "We're going to make a lot of mistakes, aren't we?"
Probably, he agreed.
"But at least we'll make them together." They walked inside, and for the first time since the Force claiming, Cale felt something like hope. Not happiness, not yet. Not trust, not entirely. But hope that maybe, just maybe, they could forge something real from the ashes of something terrible. Behind them, Mother Iris watched from the shadows, a knowing smile on her ancient face. "The curse is broken," she whispered to the wind. "But their real trial is just beginning." 3 weeks passed in careful peace. Cale spent her days in the archives, learning Battle Omega techniques from ancient texts. Dominic worked to restructure pack governance, creating councils where Omegas had equal voice. Together, they trained, learning to fight as one, to merge their powers seamlessly. But peace never lasts in wolf packs. Cale was deep in the archives when she felt it through the bond, Dominic's sudden alarm. She dropped her book and ran, following their connection through the pack house to the council chambers. She burst through the doors to find chaos. 5 wolves she didn't recognize held Beta Marcus hostage, a silver blade pressed to his throat. Dominic stood frozen, hands raised, fury and helplessness warring on his face. "Let him go," Dominic growled.
"Can't do that, Alpha," the leader said.
He was tall, scarred, his eyes yellow with rogue taint. "We've come for what's owed. Your father promised us territory and resources. When the rogue queen backed out, we decided to take what's ours. My father's promises are void. That's not how we see it." The blade pressed tighter against Beta Marcus's throat, drawing blood. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give us the Southern Territories hunting rights for a year and the Omega. Then we'll leave peacefully." Through their bond, Cale felt Dominic's instinct to protect her warring with his need to protect Beta Marcus, his closest friend and advisor. "The Omega isn't property to be traded," Dominic said carefully. "Everything can be traded, Alpha. Question is, what's one Omega worth to you? Her life, or your Betas?" Cale stepped forward. "I'm worth more than you could possibly handle." The leader's eyes fixed on her, and she saw recognition dawn. "You're her. The Battle Omega everyone's talking about. The rumors say you took down a dozen rogues single-handed." "The rumors are conservative," Cale replied, moving closer. Through her bond with Dominic, she felt his understanding, his trust that she had a plan. "I took down 20. Brave words for someone surrounded. Am I surrounded? Or are you trapped in here with us?" The leader laughed, but it sounded nervous. "You're bluffing." "Let's find out." Cale's power exploded outward. Silver light filled the room, not attacking but immobilizing. The 5 rogues froze in place, held by invisible bonds. Beta Marcus wrenched free, scrambling away from his captor. "What is this?" the leader snarled, struggling uselessly. "This is what happens when you threaten my pack," Cale said coldly. "When you come into my home and demand I be traded like livestock. When you think Omegas are weak." She gestured, and the rogues rose off the ground, suspended in midair. Through her bond with Dominic, she felt his power feeding into hers, amplifying her magic. Together, they were unstoppable. "Please," the leader gasped. "We didn't know. We thought. You thought I was helpless. That's your mistake." "Cale," Dominic said softly, and through their bond, she felt his caution. Not fear of what she could do, but concern that she might go too far. She took a breath, reining in the power. "You have 2 choices. 1, you leave our territory now and never return. Tell every rogue pack you meet that Shadowpine is under new leadership, and threats won't be tolerated. 2, you can try to fight us, and I'll show you exactly how conservative those rumors were." "We'll leave," the leader said quickly. "We'll spread the word. No more attacks. Kale lowered them to the ground, releasing her hold. The rogues scrambled for the door, not waiting for further permission. When they were gone, silence filled the chamber. Are you all right? Dominic asked Beta Marcus. Fine, thanks to her. Beta Marcus looked at Kale with newfound respect. I've never seen power like that. That was only a fraction of what she's capable of, Dominic said, and through their bond, Kale felt his pride mixing with awe. The Battle Omega bloodline isn't a myth. No, Beta Marcus agreed. It's not, which means other packs will hear about this. Word will spread. Good, Kale said. Let them hear. Let them know that Omegas aren't prey anymore. But even as she spoke, she felt unease through her bond with Dominic. Something was wrong, some danger she couldn't quite identify. What is it? She asked him silently through their connection. My father, Dominic thought back. He's been too quiet. 3 weeks in the cells without a word. That's not like him. Kale's eyes widened. You think he's planning something? I think we should check on him. Now. They ran together through the pack house to the holding cells beneath. The guard outside Marcus's cell lay slumped against the wall, breathing but unconscious. The cell door stood open. No, Dominic breathed. They rushed inside to find it empty. On the wall, written in what looked like blood, was a message. You think you've won, but you've only delayed the inevitable. I'll return with forces you can't imagine. And when I do, I'll burn your new world to ash. How did he escape? Kale demanded. Dominic examined the guard, sniffing carefully. Wolfsbane extract. Someone drugged him from inside the pack house. Meaning your father has allies we don't know about. Allies willing to commit treason. Dominic's jaw clenched. We need to find out who. Over the next hours, they questioned everyone with access to the cells. But no one admitted anything, and Kale's Omega senses detected no lies. Whoever had helped Marcus escape was either very good at hiding their involvement or genuinely believed they were doing the right thing. As night fell, Kale and Dominic stood on the balcony of his chambers, staring out at the pack lands. Some of them still believe in the old ways, Dominic said quietly. Still think my father's vision of absolute alpha dominance was right. Then we have enemies within our own pack. Yes. Through their bond, she felt his frustration, his anger at being undermined. How do we lead when we can't trust our own people? We keep trying, Kale said. We keep showing them a better way. And we prepare for when your father returns. He won't come alone next time. He'll bring an army. Then we'll build one too. But ours will fight for something worth protecting, not for domination and fear. Dominic pulled her close, and she let him, drawing comfort from their physical proximity as much as their bond. When did you become the wise one? When I stopped letting fear control me, Kale replied. When I started believing I was worth fighting for. They stood like that for a long moment, two wolves bound by fate and choice, facing an uncertain future. Then Kale gasped. Through their bond, images flooded her mind, not from Dominic but from somewhere else. Ancient Omega magic, warning her of danger. She saw Marcus gathering forces in the north. She saw wolves being tortured, forced into blood bonds. She saw a ritual that made her blood run cold. What is it? Dominic demanded. Your father. He's not just gathering an army. He's trying to recreate the old Omega subjugation rituals. If he succeeds, he could force bonds on every Omega in the region, create an army of enslaved wolves. That's impossible. Those rituals were destroyed centuries ago. Apparently not all of them. Kale clutched her head as more images came. We have weeks at most. Maybe less. Then we need allies. Other packs who'll stand with us against him. Will they? We're asking them to abandon centuries of tradition. Some will, Dominic said. The ones who are ready for change. The ones who've lost Omegas to the old ways and want better. We'll find them. Through their bond, Kale felt his determination, his refusal to let his father win. And she felt something else, his growing feelings for her. Not love, not yet, but affection, respect, genuine care. It terrified her. She pulled away slightly. Don't what? Don't start feeling things for me beyond the bond. It'll complicate everything. Kale. I'm serious, Dominic. We have enough to deal with without adding romance to the mix. Through their bond, she felt his hurt, quickly suppressed. I wasn't trying to complicate things. I was just feeling grateful. For you. For how you've handled all this. She softened slightly. I know. I'm grateful too. But gratitude isn't love, and we shouldn't confuse the two. What if it becomes love? He asked quietly. What if someday we actually want this bond? Not just accept it.
Then we'll deal with it then.
But right now, we have a war to prepare for. He nodded, respecting her boundaries even though she felt his disappointment through their connection. You're right. Strategy first, feelings later. They spent the next weeks preparing. Kale trained other Omegas who showed signs of latent power, helping them awaken abilities that had been suppressed for generations. Dominic reached out to allied packs, building coalitions. Together, they fortified the pack house and created defensive strategies. But despite their preparations, everyone felt the tension building. Marcus was coming, and when he did, it would be with overwhelming force. The attack came on the night of the new moon. Kale was sleeping when she felt it through the bond, Dominic's sudden terror. She woke to find him standing at the window, his face pale. What? She started. The western border, he said. It's burning. They rushed to the walls to see flames lighting up the night sky. And silhouetted against the fire, an army unlike anything Kale had seen. Hundreds of wolves, far more than Marcus should have been able to gather. How? She breathed. Dominic's expression was grim. He's using the subjugation rituals. Those aren't willing followers. They're enslaved Omegas forced to fight. Through her enhanced senses, Kale felt it. The wrongness of the bonds, the pain and desperation of wolves forced against their will. Her power reacted instinctively, reaching out toward the enslaved Omegas. I can feel them, she whispered. They're suffering. Dominic, we have to free them.
How?
We're outnumbered 10-1. I don't know, but I have to try. She began to gather her power, pulling from the complete bond she shared with Dominic. Through their connection, she felt him feed her his strength without hesitation, trusting her completely. Silver light began to build around her, growing brighter and brighter. Kale, Dominic said urgently. Whatever you're planning, it's drawing attention. She looked down to see the enemy army turning toward her, seeing her as a beacon. At their head, Marcus Blackwood smiled viciously. Perfect, he called up. The Battle Omega shows herself. Kill everyone else, but bring her to me alive. I want to break her personally. The army surged forward, and Kale released everything she had. Silver light exploded across the battlefield like a star-going nova. Kale's power, amplified by her bond with Dominic, reached out to every enslaved Omega in Marcus's army. She felt their forced bonds, felt the blood rituals binding them, felt their desperate desire for freedom. And she tore those bonds apart. The effect was instantaneous. Hundreds of wolves collapsed, freed from the magical chains that had compelled them. Chaos erupted in Marcus's ranks as the newly freed Omegas turned on their captors, on the alphas who'd enslaved them. But the power required was enormous. Kale felt herself draining, felt Dominic's strength flowing into her through their bond to sustain her. It wasn't enough. She was trying to break hundreds of bonds simultaneously, and each one fought her. Kale, stop. Dominic caught her as she swayed. You're killing yourself. They need me, she gasped. I can feel them. Please, just a little more.
No.
I'm not losing you for this. Through their bond, she felt his absolute terror, his certainty that she was about to burn herself out completely.
And she realized he was right.
She'd freed maybe half the enslaved Omegas, but the effort had pushed her past her limits. She collapsed into Dominic's arms. Below, the battlefield was chaos. The freed Omegas fought desperately against their former captors. Marcus's remaining forces tried to regroup, but their numbers had been cut in half, and morale was shattered. Marcus himself stood in the center of it all, his face twisted with rage. You, he snarled, pointing up at Kale and Dominic. You've ruined everything. Years of planning, decades of work, all destroyed by an Omega who doesn't know her place. She knows her place perfectly, Dominic called back. Standing beside me as an equal. Something you'll never understand. Equals? Marcus laughed bitterly. There's no such thing. Someone always dominates, someone always submits. That's nature. That's what you were taught, Kale said, finding her voice despite her exhaustion. But it's a lie. The old bonds, before your ancestors corrupted them, were balanced. Partners, not masters and slaves. Sentimental nonsense. Is it? Kale gestured to the freed Omegas below. Look at them. Look at how they fight now that they're free. They're not weak. They never were. You just made them believe it. Marcus's expression shifted, and for a moment, Kale saw something like uncertainty. But it was quickly buried under decades of conditioning. It doesn't matter, he said. Even if you freed some of them, I still have enough forces to crush you. And more importantly, I have this. He pulled something from his cloak, a crystal that pulsed with dark energy. Mother Iris, standing beside Kale and Dominic, gasped. That's impossible. The soul stones were destroyed generations ago. Not all of them, Marcus replied. This one was hidden in the deepest archives, waiting for someone with the vision to use it. With this, I can sever any bond, corrupt any connection. Even, he looked meaningfully at Kale and Dominic, a complete bond between mates. Through their connection, Kale felt Dominic shock his fear. The complete bond they'd forged was the source of their power, the foundation of everything they'd built. If Marcus could break it, you're bluffing, Dominic said. Using a soul stone requires enormous power and knowledge. Knowledge your grandmother gave me before she died, Marcus replied. She thought she was confessing to ease her conscience, but she gave me the final piece I needed. The ritual to activate the stone, to weaponize it against forced bonds. Our bond isn't forced, Kale said. Isn't it? You only accepted it to save his life. That's coercion, Omega. And coercion can be corrupted. He raised the stone, and it began to glow. Kale felt something pull at her bond with Dominic, felt dark energy trying to worm its way in, trying to find the cracks, the doubts, the fears that still existed between them. And there were cracks. Despite everything, despite the progress they'd made, Kale still had moments of doubt. Moments when she wondered if she'd accepted the bond for the right reasons. Moments when the trauma of the forced claiming rose up and made her question everything. The soul stone found those doubts and amplified them. Kale, Dominic said urgently, whatever you're feeling, fight it. The stone is lying to you. But the doubts felt so real. Did I only accept the bond because I had to? Was it ever really my choice? Or was I just trading one form of slavery for another? Through their bond, she felt Dominic experiencing the same doubts from his side. Did I manipulate her into accepting? Use her gratitude and our situation to force her hand again? Am I any better than my father? The bond between them began to fray. Yes, Marcus hissed. Feel the truth of what you are. A forced pairing, dressed up in pretty words about choice and equality. But underneath, it's the same as every other bond, domination and submission. No, Kale said, but her voice lacked conviction. The bond frayed further. She felt Dominic slipping away from her mind, felt their connection weakening. And with it went their combined power, their ability to fight as one. Marcus's remaining forces, seeing their weakness, pressed the attack. Wolves surged toward the pack house walls. We need to reforge the bond, Mother Iris said urgently. But to do that, you must face the doubts directly. Acknowledge them, work through them. The stone can only corrupt what you're hiding from yourselves.
How?
Dominic demanded. Speak the truth. All of it, even the painful parts. Kale looked at Dominic, seeing her own fear reflected in his eyes. To speak her deepest doubts aloud, to voice the fear she'd been suppressing. That was terrifying. But the alternative was losing everything. I'll go first, she said. I accepted the bond partly because I had to, because it was accept or watch you die. And I've wondered if that makes it as forced as the original claiming. If I can ever truly choose you when the alternative was your death. Through their fragile bond, she felt Dominic's pain at her words. But she also felt something else, relief that she'd voiced what they'd both been feeling. My turn, he said. I fear that I manipulated you. That I used our situation, your compassion, your desire to break the curse, to trap you in a bond you'd never have chosen freely. And I don't know if I can ever separate genuine feelings from guilt and obligation. The soul stone's corruption faltered slightly, unable to feed on doubts that were being openly acknowledged. I'm afraid, Kale continued, that I'll never fully trust you. That part of me will always see you as the man who dragged me before the council, who forced that first bond. And I hate myself for that fear, because you've changed. You've tried so hard to be better. I'm afraid, Dominic said, that I'll always disappoint you. That no matter how much I change, I'll never be worthy of the grace you've shown me. That one day you'll realize you could have done so much better than me. The doubts, spoken aloud and shared, lost their power. The soul stone's corruption crumbled. But, Kale said, feeling the bond starting to restabilize, despite those fears, I chose you. Not just to save your life, but because I saw potential in us. Potential to be something neither of us could be alone. And despite my guilt, Dominic added, I choose you. Every day. Not because I have to, but because you challenge me to be better. Because you see the worst of me and still believe I can change. Their bond snapped back together, stronger than before. The soul stone's dark energy burned away in the face of their honest vulnerability. Marcus stared at the stone in disbelief as it cracked in his hand, unable to corrupt a bond that had just been fortified through brutal honesty. No, he whispered. It should have worked. It didn't, Kale said, power flooding back through her. Because we're not hiding from our doubts. We're facing them. That's what makes us different from your vision of bonds. She and Dominic moved together, leaping from the wall into the battlefield below. Their power, reunited and strengthened, blazed silver and gold. The remaining enslaved Omegas felt their presence and broke free, Kale's power finishing what she'd started. Marcus's army dissolved. Some fled. Others surrendered. A few died fighting for a cause they didn't believe in. Finally, only Marcus remained, standing alone in a circle of freed wolves. Dominic and Kale approached him together. It's over, father, Dominic said quietly. It's never over, Marcus spat. Even if I fall, others will continue. The old ways run deep. You think one pack can change centuries of tradition? Maybe not, Kale said. But one pack can be an example. Can show others that there's a better way. You're naive. Power is all that matters. Without domination, there's only chaos. Then we'll take our chances with chaos, Dominic said. Better that than the order you created, built on suffering and fear. He gestured, and pack members moved to bind Marcus. The former alpha didn't resist this time. He looked old suddenly and tired, a man whose worldview had crumbled completely. You're going to exile me again, Marcus said flatly. No, Dominic replied. Exile didn't work. You came back. This time, you'll stand trial. Every Omega you enslaved, every family you destroyed, every life you ruined, they'll all have their say. And then the pack will decide your fate. They'll execute me. Maybe, Kale said. Or maybe they'll show you more mercy than you ever showed them. Either way, it won't be our decision alone. That's what shared power means. As they led Marcus away, the freed Omegas began to gather. Some were from their own pack, stolen in raids over the years. Others were from distant territories, forced into bonds and dragged here against their will. What happens to us now? One asked, a young woman whose eyes held centuries of pain. That's your choice, Kale said. Stay and help us build something new. Return to your home packs. Go anywhere you want. You're free. Truly free. And if our home packs don't want us back, if they see us as tainted, then you're welcome here, Dominic said. We're building a pack where all wolves are valued, where bonds are chosen, where omegas are respected. It's not perfect, and we're still figuring it out. But you'd be welcome. Many chose
To stay.
Others left to test whether they could return home. A few simply wandered off, needing time alone to process their freedom. As dawn broke over the battlefield, Kale and Dominic stood amid the aftermath. Bodies were being tended to, wounds being healed, freed wolves being given food and shelter. "We won," Dominic said, but he didn't sound triumphant. "We survived," Kale corrected. "But the real work starts now. Rebuilding, healing, proving that our way can actually work." Through their bond, she felt his exhaustion matching her own. They'd pushed themselves to the absolute limit, and the cost showed in every aching muscle, every depleted reservoir of power. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "We both need rest." They walked back to the pack house together, and for the first time, Kale didn't hesitate when Dominic led her to his chambers. They collapsed onto the bed together, not romantically, but out of sheer exhaustion and the comfort of their bond. "Kale," Dominic said softly as sleep began to claim them. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being honest about your doubts. For not pretending everything was perfect between us. For choosing to work through it instead of running." "That goes both ways," she murmured. "Your honesty saved us, as much as mine." They drifted into sleep, their bond humming contentedly between them. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and growing stronger through vulnerability. Outside, Mother Iris watched the sunrise, a knowing smile on her face. The curse was truly broken now, replaced with something the wolf packs hadn't seen in generations, a genuine partnership built on choice, honesty, and mutual respect. But her smile faded as she felt something through the ancient Omega magic that flowed through her veins. A disturbance, far to the north. Other packs had noticed what happened here. Some were inspired, others were threatened, and some were preparing to ensure this revolution went no further. "Enjoy your rest, young ones," she whispered. "You'll need your strength for what's coming." The trial of Marcus Blackwood lasted 3 days. The Great Hall had been transformed into a place of testimony, where victim after victim came forward to speak their truth. Omegas who'd been abused under his rule. Families torn apart by his machinations. Wolves who'd watched loved ones die because they questioned his authority. Marcus sat in chains, forced to listen to every word. Kale watched from beside Dominic, feeling her mate's complicated emotions through their bond. Anger at his father's crimes. Grief for the man he'd once hoped his father could be. Relief that the truth was finally being spoken. Shame that he'd once followed those teachings without question. "I can't even defend him," Dominic said quietly as another witness finished their testimony. "Everything they're saying is true. You're not responsible for his sins," Kale reminded him. "But I perpetuated them. Before you, before the curse, I ruled the same way. How many of these people suffered because of me?" Through their bond, Kale felt his genuine remorse.
Then use that.
Let it motivate you to be better, to create a system where no future alpha can do what he did. On the 3rd day, it was time for judgment. Elder Thorne stood before the gathered pack. "We've heard the testimony. We've seen the evidence. Marcus Blackwood's crimes are beyond question. The question now is, what justice do we seek?" "Death," someone called from the crowd. Others echoed the sentiment. "Exile," another voice countered. "Let him live with what he's done, alone and powerless." "Imprisonment for life," a third suggested. The debate raged for hours. Kale watched Marcus throughout, seeing how he'd changed over the 3 days. The arrogance had drained away, replaced with something that might have been regret, or might just have been defeat. Finally, Elder Thorne raised his hand for silence. "Alpha Dominic, as current leader, you must make the final decision. What is your judgment?" Dominic stood slowly. Through their bond, Kale felt his turmoil, his struggle to balance justice with mercy, law with compassion. "My father's crimes warrant death," he said clearly. "The pain he's caused, the lives he's destroyed, they demand the ultimate price. But if I execute him, I become him. I prove that might makes right, that alphas have absolute power over life and death. He moved to stand before Marcus, looking down at the man who'd raised him. So, instead, I offer a different judgment. Permanent exile, but not as an alpha. Father, you will be stripped of your alpha power, bound by Omega magic to prevent you from ever bonding another wolf. You will leave our territory and never return. If you do, the death sentence will be immediate. This way, you live, but you live with the consequences of your actions, powerless and alone. The crowd murmured, some in approval, others in dissatisfaction. And one more thing, Dominic added. Every Omega you enslaved, every wolf you harmed, they each get to speak one final truth to you. Not for your benefit, but for theirs. So they have closure. That could take days, Marcus said, speaking for the first time. Then it takes days, Cale said, standing beside Dominic. You took years from them. You can give them days. And so it began. One by one, wolves approached Marcus.
Some spoke of their pain.
Others simply looked him in the eye, letting him see what he'd done. A few forgave him, though most didn't. Cale watched it all, feeling through her bond with Dominic how each testimony affected him. He was learning, truly learning, what his father's legacy meant. On the evening of the 5th day, when the last testimony had been heard, Mother Iris approached with the ritual components to strip Marcus of his alpha power. This will hurt, she warned, like tearing out part of your soul. Good, Marcus said quietly. Perhaps it's a fraction of what I've inflicted on others. The ritual was brutal to watch. Marcus screamed as the alpha essence was ripped from him, leaving him just a regular wolf, no more powerful than any beta. When it was done, he collapsed, looking decades older. It's finished, Mother Iris said. He can never bond another wolf, never reclaim alpha status. The magic has sealed him, as he is now. Guards helped Marcus to his feet. He looked at Dominic, and for the first time, Cale saw genuine emotion in his eyes. You're a better man than I raised you to be, Marcus said hoarsely. I don't know if I'm proud or ashamed of that. Both, probably, Dominic replied. As I am of you. They led Marcus away. He would leave at first light, beginning an exile that would last the rest of his life. That night, Cale found Dominic on the balcony, staring out at the pack lands. How do you feel? She asked, moving to stand beside him. Empty, he admitted. Like I've lost something I didn't even like, but it was still mine. He was still your father. It's okay to grieve, even for someone who hurt you. Through their bond, she felt his complicated emotions, grief and relief and guilt all tangled together. She wrapped her arms around him, offering physical comfort to match their mental connection. I keep thinking about all the things I did when I followed his teachings, Dominic said. How many wolves I hurt. How many Omegas I degraded. I became Alpha at 23, and for 5 years, I ruled exactly like him. And now you're changing that, Cale said. You can't undo the past, Dominic. But you can make the future better. Is that enough? I don't know, she admitted honestly. But it's all any of us can do. They stood together as night fell, two wolves bound by fate and choice, facing an uncertain future. The attack came at midnight. Cale woke to the sound of screaming. She and Dominic bolted from bed, running to the windows to see flames rising from the eastern quarter of Pac lands. But these weren't rogue forces. These were organized troops, wearing the insignia of 3 different packs. The Northern Alliance, Dominic breathed. They've come to stop us. Through the bond, Cale felt his shock and fury. The Northern Alliance was a coalition of the most traditional packs, those who clung to the old ways most fiercely. Beta Marcus burst into the room. Alpha, we're surrounded. They're demanding you and Cale's surrender for judgment. They're calling what you've done an abomination, a threat to all pack order. How many? Dominic asked. At least 500. They've brought alphas from 6 packs. Cale's mind raced. They'd just finished a battle. Their fighters were exhausted, their defenses weakened. They couldn't possibly fight off 6 packs worth of trained warriors. We need to negotiate, she said. They won't negotiate with an Omega, Dominic replied. To them, you speaking for the pack is proof of everything they fear. then they're about to learn differently. Before Dominic could stop her, Kale walked onto the balcony. Her Omega power blazed silver, making her visible to everyone below. "I am Kale Moonwhisper," she called out, her voice magically amplified. "Battle Omega and mate to Alpha Dominic. You've come to judge us. Then hear our truth first." The Northern Alliance forces stopped their advance, clearly not expecting an Omega to address them so boldly. An elderly Alpha stepped forward, Marcus Ironhide, leader of the strongest pack in the Alliance. "Omega, return to your place. We have business with your Alpha." "I am in my place," Kale replied, "standing beside my mate as an equal." "That's what terrifies you, isn't it? Not that we've changed pack structure, but that we've proven Omegas aren't weak. That your entire worldview is built on lies." "Careful, girl," Marcus Ironhide growled. "You speak to your betters." "I speak to wolves who are afraid," Kale said. "Afraid that if Omegas have power, Alphas will lose control. Afraid that if bonds are chosen freely, some Alphas might not be chosen at all. Afraid that equality means losing everything. We are here to restore order. You're here to preserve a system that benefits you at others' expense." Kale gestured to the freed Omegas who'd come to watch, survivors of Marcus's army. "Look at them. These wolves were enslaved, tortured, forced into bonds against their will. Is that the order you want to restore? Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good," Marcus Ironhide said. "Whose greater good?" Dominic stepped onto the balcony beside Kale. "Because from where I stand, the only ones who benefit from the old ways are Alphas like us. Everyone else suffers." "You've been corrupted by the Omega," another Alpha accused. "This is exactly why forced bonds are forbidden. They give Omegas power over Alpha minds." "Our bond wasn't forced," Dominic said. "It was chosen. And yes, Kale has changed me. She's made me see that the power I inherited was built on genocide and oppression. She's made me want to be better." "Then you've proven yourself unfit to lead," Marcus Ironhide declared. "We invoke the right of challenge. Surrender your position, or face us in combat." The right of challenge, an ancient law allowing multiple packs to remove an Alpha deemed unfit. If Dominic refused, they'd attack. If he accepted, he'd have to fight representatives from each challenging pack, often to the death. Through their bond, Kale felt Dominic's resignation. He was exhausted from the recent battle, not at full strength. Fighting 6 fresh Alphas would be suicide. "I'll fight," Kale said. Everyone stared at her. "That's not possible," Marcus Ironhide said. "The right of challenge is for Alphas only." "Why?" Kale challenged. "Because you say so? Because your laws were written by Alphas who wanted to keep power for themselves? I'm Dominic's equal, his mate, his partner. What threatens him threatens me. I claim the right to stand in his place." "This is absurd," another Alpha sputtered. "An Omega cannot." "Cannot what?" Kale's power flared, making the air crackle. "Cannot fight? Cannot lead? Cannot be strong? I am Battle Omega, heir to a bloodline you tried to destroy because it terrified you. And I invoke my ancestral right to defend my pack." Mother Iris appeared on the balcony, her ancient voice carrying. "She speaks truth. Before the Purge, Battle Omegas had the right to stand for their packs and challenges. The law was never formally revoked, only forgotten." "This is manipulation," Marcus Ironhide accused. "This is history," Mother Iris replied. "And if you deny her right, you prove you're afraid to face her fairly." The Alphas conferred. Through her bond with Dominic, Kale felt his terror for her, his desire to refuse, to protect her. But she also felt his understanding that this was necessary, that someone needed to stand up to the old ways decisively. "I don't want you to do this," he said through their bond. "I know," she replied. "But someone has to prove that Omegas are equals, that we can defend ourselves and our packs. If I don't, nothing truly changes. You could die. So could you if you fight. At least this way, we're making a statement." Marcus Ironhide finally spoke. "Very well. The Omega may stand in challenge. But know this, if you lose, your pack will be dissolved, its members distributed among the alliance. Everything you've built will be erased. And if I win,
Kale asked.
then we recognize your pack's sovereignty and leave you in peace. For now. She doesn't fight alone, Dominic said suddenly. We share a complete bond. We fight as one, as battle omegas and alphas were meant to. That's the ancestral right. The alphas shifted uneasily. Fighting one omega was one thing. Fighting a fully bonded pair with combined power was far more dangerous. Acceptable, Marcus Ironhide finally said.
Dawn.
The challenge ground. 6 champions against 2. May the strongest prevail. As the alliance forces withdrew to prepare, Kale and Dominic returned inside. This is insane, Beta Marcus said. Even with your bond, 6 experienced alphas is our only choice, Dominic finished. They won't negotiate. They won't compromise. They want us gone, want everything we represent erased. So we fight. Or we run, Kale said quietly. Everyone stared at her. We could, she continued, take our most loyal pack members and flee. Find territory somewhere else, start over. That's not who you are, Dominic said through their bond. No, Kale agreed aloud. But I wanted to say it out loud. To acknowledge that there's a choice. We're not trapped. We're choosing to stand and fight. Through their bond, Dominic sent waves of affection and pride.
Together.
Together, she confirmed. They spent the remaining hours of night preparing, training, synchronizing their bond even more deeply. By dawn, they moved as one being, each knowing the other's thoughts and intentions perfectly. The challenge ground was an ancient clearing north of the pack house. By sunrise, it was ringed with wolves, their pack members, the alliance forces, and neutral observers from other territories who'd come to witness. Kale and Dominic stood in the center, facing 6 alphas who radiated centuries of combined experience and power. Mother Iris stood as arbiter. The terms are set. This fight continues until surrender, incapacitation, or death. There are no other rules. One moment, Kale said. She turned to address all the assembled wolves. Before we begin, I want everyone to understand what they're about to see. This isn't omega weakness or alpha domination. This is partnership. This is what the bonds were meant to be before fear and prejudice corrupted them. Watch closely, and then decide what future you want. Marcus Ironhide snorted. Brave words. Let's see if you can back them up. Mother Iris raised her hand. Begin. The 6 alphas attacked, but Kale and Dominic were ready. They moved in perfect synchronization, their bond allowing them to function as a single warrior in 2 bodies. When one defended, the other struck. When one needed power, the other provided it. Kale's omega magic created barriers and openings. Dominic's alpha strength exploited every gap. Together, they were overwhelming. The first alpha fell within minutes, knocked unconscious by a combined strike that carried both physical and magical force. The second lasted longer, but eventually succumbed to exhaustion as Kale and Dominic systematically broke through his defenses. But the remaining 4 adapted their strategy. They began attacking Kale and Dominic separately, trying to split their focus, to break their synchronization. It almost worked. An alpha got inside Dominic's guard, claws raking across his ribs. Through their bond, Kale felt his pain as her own. She lost focus for a crucial second, and another alpha's strike caught her shoulder. They stumbled, their perfect unity fracturing under pain and pressure. Separate them. Marcus Ironhide commanded. Break the bond. The 4 remaining alphas pressed harder, driving Kale and Dominic apart physically. The bond strained under the distance and distraction. Through their connection, Kale felt Dominic's desperation, his fear that they were going to lose. And she realized something crucial. They were still fighting like individuals who happened to be bonded, but they needed to be something more. Dominic, she called through their bond. Stop thinking. Just feel. Trust me completely. I do. Then let go. Let me in. All the way. She felt his hesitation. Complete trust meant complete vulnerability, meant giving up control entirely. For an alpha raised to dominate, It was the ultimate surrender. But he did it. Dominic opened himself completely through their bond, dropping every defense, every wall, every scrap of protective control. And Cale did the same, meeting him in that space of absolute vulnerability. Their bond exploded into something transcendent. Suddenly, they weren't two wolves fighting together. They were one consciousness in two bodies, their powers merging into something entirely new. Cale moved with Dominic's strength and instinct. Dominic struck with Cale's precision and magic. The four remaining alphas didn't stand a chance. Cale/Dominic moved through them like water, like wind, like nothing they could predict or counter. Every attack was met with perfect defense. Every opening was exploited with devastating efficiency. Within minutes, all four lay defeated on the ground. The clearing was silent with shock. Cale and Dominic stood together, breathing hard, their bond still merged in that transcendent state. Slowly, they pulled back into separate consciousness, but something had changed. They touched something profound, something that would remain part of them forever. Marcus Ironhide struggled to his feet from where he'd been knocked down. His face was ashen. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No," Mother Iris said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "This is what we lost. This is what the Purge destroyed. The true power of balanced bonds." She turned to address the assembled wolves. "You've all witnessed it. Two wolves, Alpha and Omega, bonded as equals. This is what our ancestors knew. This is what we can reclaim." "It's an abomination," an Alliance Alpha said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Cale asked, finally finding her voice. "Or is it just threatening to you because it proves you've been wrong? Because it means giving up absolute control?" She looked around at all the watching wolves, Alliance forces, her own pack, neutral observers. "We're not asking you to change overnight. We're not demanding you adopt our ways immediately. We're just asking you to stop trying to destroy us for being different. To let us prove that another path is possible." Marcus Ironhide was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. "You've won the challenge. Your pack's sovereignty is recognized." "And," Cale prompted. "And," he struggled with the words. "Perhaps there is more to learn here than I expected." It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't even approval. But it was a crack in the foundation of centuries of tradition. The Alliance forces began to withdraw. Some looked disturbed. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked outright inspired. As they left, Cale collapsed into Dominic's arms, exhaustion finally overtaking her. "We did it," she whispered. "You did it," he corrected. "Your idea to merge completely, to trust that deeply, that's what saved us." "Our idea," Cale said. "We're partners, remember?" Through their bond, now deeper and richer than ever before, Dominic sent waves of gratitude and affection and something that might, eventually, become love. "Come on," he said, lifting her. "Let's go home." As they walked back to the pack house together, supported by cheering pack members, Cale realized something profound. She'd come here as a punishment, as property, as something to be broken. And she'd left the challenge ground as a warrior, a partner, a wolf who'd helped change the world. Not bad for someone who was supposed to know her place. 6 weeks had passed since the challenge. Cale stood in the Great Hall, watching as another delegation arrived, this time from the Eastern Territories, curious about the pack where Omegas and Alphas ruled as equals. They'd had dozens of such visitors, some hostile, most curious, a few desperate for change in their own packs. "They're here to see the circus," Dominic said, coming to stand beside her. "Then let's give them something worth seeing," Cale replied. Through their bond, she felt his amusement and affection. Over the past weeks, they'd settled into something neither had expected. A genuine partnership. Not love, not yet, but deep respect and growing care. The delegation leader was an Omega named Sarah, her posture cautious but hopeful. "Alpha Dominic, Omega Cale, thank you for receiving us." "Just Dominic and Cale," Cale corrected gently. "Titles create unnecessary hierarchy." Sarah's eyes widened. "You really mean that?" "We do," Dominic confirmed. We'll show you around. Ask any questions you have. Over the next hours, they toured the pack lands, showed Sarah the Omega training grounds where battle skills were being rekindled, demonstrated the council chambers where decisions were made collectively, introduced her to former rogues who'd found a home, to freed slaves who were learning to live again, to pack members who were slowly adapting to new ways. It's not perfect, Kale admitted as they sat in the garden later. We still have wolves who resist change, who cling to the old ways. We make mistakes constantly. But you're trying, Sarah said. That's more than most packs can say. She hesitated. My alpha, he's not bad, not cruel like some. But he genuinely believes Omegas are happier when protected and cared for, not when we have power. How do you change someone who thinks their domination is kindness? Dominic and Kale exchanged glances, communicating silently through their bond. You show them, Dominic finally said. You demonstrate that Omegas with power don't destroy packs, they strengthen them. You let them see that equality doesn't mean chaos. And if they still refuse? Then you decide what you're willing to accept, Kale said. I won't tell you to stay in a situation that harms you, but I also won't tell you to leave if there's hope for change. Only you can make that choice. Sarah nodded slowly. Before I came here, I thought the rumors had to be exaggerated. An Omega standing as battle champion? Defeating 6 alphas? It seemed impossible. But seeing you two together, feeling how your bond works, she shook her head in wonder. You're proof that another way exists. After Sarah left, promising to share what she'd learned with her pack, Kale and Dominic walked through the pack lands as evening fell. Do you think we're really changing anything? Kale asked. Or are we just one small pack trying to hold back the tide of centuries? Does it matter? Dominic replied. Even if we only change one pack, save one Omega from forced bonding, isn't that worth it? Through their bond, Kale felt his sincerity. When did you become an idealist? When I bonded with one, he replied, and she felt his affection flowing through their connection. They reached their favorite spot, a hill overlooking the pack house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. I've been thinking, Dominic said carefully, about us. Kale's heart rate picked up. What about us? We're partners. We're bonded. We fight together, lead together, make decisions together. But we're still cautious with each other, still holding back parts of ourselves. That's natural, Kale said, given how we started. I know. And I'm not pushing for anything you're not ready for. But he turned to face her fully. I want you to know that when I'm ready, when I've earned it, I'd like to actually court you.
Properly.
The way I should have from the beginning. Kale's throat tightened. Dominic. You don't have to answer now, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know that this bond, this partnership, for me, it's becoming more. Not because I have to feel that way, but because I do. You're brave and strong and you challenge me to be better every day. And someday, maybe I hope you might feel the same. Through their bond, Kale felt the truth of his words, felt his vulnerability in speaking them. For an alpha raised to never show weakness, this was enormous. I'm not there yet, she admitted. The trauma of the forced bonding, it still affects me. Sometimes I wake up and for a moment, I forget I chose to accept the bond. I panic, thinking I'm trapped again. I know. I feel it through our bond. But, Kale continued, I'm healing. And when I look at you now, I don't just see the man who dragged me before the council. I see the man who admitted he was wrong, who faced his father, who trusted me completely in the challenge ground. And that man, she paused, searching for words. That man, I could maybe eventually choose in a different way. Dominic smiled, and through their bond, she felt his joy tempered with patience. Eventually is enough. It's more than I deserve. Stop that, Kale said. Stop acting like you don't deserve happiness. You've changed, Dominic. You've worked hard to become someone different. You deserve the chance at happiness as much as anyone. So do you, he replied softly. And I promise, I'll keep working to be worthy of it. They stood together as darkness fell, watching lights come on across the packlands. Below them, freed Omegas trained with former alphas. Mixed groups worked together on reconstruction. Children played, without regard to designation. We're creating something new, Kale said. Something that didn't exist before. We're reclaiming something old, Dominic corrected. Something that should never have been lost. The balanced way. Both, Kale decided. We're reclaiming old wisdom and creating new applications. That's not a bad thing. A howl rose from the pack house, then another, then dozens more. The evening song, the pack's unity call. But this time, Omega voices were as loud as Alpha, Beta joining with all designations in harmony. Kale and Dominic added their voices to the chorus. Through their bond, Kale felt contentment, hope, purpose. She wasn't in love with Dominic, not yet. But she cared for him, respected him, enjoyed working with him. And maybe, given time and continued healing, that could become something more. Or maybe it wouldn't. Maybe they'd remain partners and friends bound by circumstance. And that would be okay too. The key was choice. The freedom to let their relationship develop naturally, without force or expectation. To build something real from a foundation that had started broken. What are you thinking? Dominic asked. That I'm grateful, Kale said. Not for how we started, never that. But for where we ended up. For the chance to reclaim my heritage, to help other Omegas find their strength, to prove that another way is possible. And for me, Dominic asked, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. Kale smiled. And for you, for the man you've become, and the man you're still working to be. Through their bond, she felt his relief and happiness. They stood together, Alpha and Omega, once enemies, now partners, maybe someday more. Two wolves who'd been thrust together as punishment and had forged it into purpose. Come on, Dominic said eventually. Mother Iris is making her ceremonial stew. If we're late, Beta Marcus will eat all of it. Can't have that, Kale agreed, laughing. They walked down the hill together, neither leading, neither following, but moving in sync. Behind them, the moon rose over Packlands transformed. Ahead, the pack house glowed with warmth and welcome. The curse that had brought them together was broken. The force bond had become chosen. The punishment had transformed into purpose. And though neither knew what the future held, whether other packs would follow their example, whether they'd face more challenges, whether their partnership would deepen into love, they knew one thing with certainty. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. As equals, as partners, as proof that even the darkest beginnings could lead to light. Kale Moonwhisper and Dominic Blackwood walked into their future side by side, reclaiming their fates from the ashes of forced destiny, building something new and ancient all at once, a bond freely chosen, a partnership equally shared, and a love that, if it came, would be worth the wait. The Alpha had taken the Omega as punishment. Fate had turned it into a curse. But they had transformed it into salvation. And that made all the difference.